Hello, welcome to the Evolve Vets podcast.
I'm Anna.
And I'm Bethany. Together, let's stop revolving and start evolving.
Welcome to the Evolve Vets podcast. I'm Anna.
And I'm Bethany. And today we're talking about money.
Money! So we're really excited to bring this podcast to you. We've had a lot of requests to talk about money. Money is an undertone throughout vet med and a lot of the decisions that we make as veterinarians. There's a lot of money pressure. We all talk about student loans and the impact that that can make on a lot of veterinarians and their free will and their decisions to choose certain jobs. And what we've done, we want to really flip the narrative from the scarcity mindset that we have that's prevalent throughout veterinary medicine. We want to share examples of lessons that we've learned from experts who we've talked to and interviewed for this podcast specifically, and share that there is a path forward for abundance, that veterinarians are making more money than they ever have, that there are so many more jobs than there ever have been, that people with pets are spending more money on their pets than they ever have, and that there's solutions for things like the pressures that you feel with student loans. You can get a plan in place so that you feel comfortable and you can kind of put that on cruise control and go about your life after vet school. So we have a lot of juicy stuff to share. Money is super taboo, and we want to talk about it really openly.
So with that, let's start just with the basic framework of not only money, but really mindset. So when it comes to having lack versus abundant mindset, there's so many things at play. There's how society teaches you, the things that you're taught, your culture, maybe even what you learn about veterinary medicine from mentors. All of that comes into play when you're deciding like lack versus abundance. And in our studies and what we teach, there's three major areas where you can have lack or you can choose abundance. One of those is going to be mindset. So when you approach a situation, are you thinking about all the possibilities and how things can flow to you and how you can attract them? Or are you thinking about, how there's no next step or something's happening to you and having that martyrdom? The second thing we'll talk about is going to be money. So when we think about money, there can be a lack mindset and then there can be an abundant mindset. Lack of mindset when it comes to money is, I need to save all this just in case there's a rainy day. Should you save some? Yes. But should you also enjoy some of the things and enjoy the money that you're making and earning and spend it on things that you really love and light you up? And then the third is actually time abundance. When you look at your time, are you always in lack? Are you rushing? You're trying to plan everything? Or are we in abundance with time? Are we treating it like it's a luxury and that we have plenty of time and that things will get done in the appropriate way because we trust the universe to bring it to us? And so those are really the three principles of lack versus abundance. And we'll dive more into each of those as we talk through our summer evolution. And with that, Anna, can you tell us a little bit as we dive into the money scarcity problem? Why do you think that's there and what comes up for you? Do you have any examples?
Yeah, absolutely. So a few things, and I touched on one earlier, is that we get into vet school and we're taught that we're going to take on a lot of student debt and then we're going to graduate and maybe we need to do an internship because we want to pursue a specialty. And if you're going to do an internship, you're going to be broke AF for a really long time, especially if you're going into your residency. I mean, you're making what, $30,000 a year, maybe? From people who we've interviewed or friends that we have. Maybe, hopefully, that's changed by now. If it hasn't, it's really tough because then it makes it harder to pay on your student loans. You're racking up interest, maybe. The student loan situation is a little nutso right now, just with so many different legal changes that are going on. And we have some advice from our friend Meredith Jones. She is a financial advisor and also a veterinarian. But there is this perception when you go to school that you're going to take on a big debt. And then maybe after that, you're going to have a lower paying job for a few years. And then you're not going to make as much as your human doctor counterpart. And I'd say that's not totally true anymore. Veterinarians can earn great money now. But just as far as legacy ways of thinking, in the past, there's been a lot of lack around how much we can make, and that we have to work hard, and the number of hours we work is associated with how much we'll get paid. So it can be scary. And I think ultimately the student loans and the pressure of those student loans, and then maybe the mismatch with how much traditionally salaries have been, makes it scary. Like, obviously that feels really scary when you graduate and you have, your salary that maybe is one number, and then your student loans are 2 or 3 times that number. That feels like a lot of weight, and it can feel really restrictive as far as what you choose to do next.
When I think about scarcity mindset in the veterinary field specifically, there's another component that I think comes up. When you're even training to get into vet school, you're required to donate over 5,000 hours to even apply to vet school. And so we're essentially taught that our time is not valuable because we're giving it to the profession as a learning experience, which is that an important part of applying to vet school, making sure you know and understand our profession? Absolutely. I think that's hands down an important part of the process. I think along the way, what it teaches us is to undervalue the services that we provide and our worth as we come into the veterinary space and veterinary clinics, veterinary hospitals. And so it's kind of what we're teaching our generations as they come into the field. And on top of that, I'm sure everybody's had that customer that yells, "You're only in it for the money." I know that scarred me within my first 6 months out of school. And I had a very big moment when that happened. It was very emotional because, as you said at the entry of the podcast, we don't come into this field for the money, but we also need to provide for our families. We need to, pay off those student loans. There's so many responsibilities that come in that do require money. And so I think all those things combined create this lack mindset when it comes to practicing as a veterinarian. And the reason Anna and I want to talk about this to each of you is because this very specific nuanced subject is truly around mindset, how you ask for money, how we show up, how we offer diagnostics, how we talk about diagnostics to customers, and then also how we treat money once we earn it, and also knowing what you're worth on the other side.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's really spot on. And when we think about customers or people coming into the vet clinic with pets, I personally have had several friends or even family say, like, "Oh, the vet's just gotten so expensive. It used to be $500 for a dental for my dog or cat, and now it's 1,000." Like, that's wild. Or they come to the ER and they're like, "An exam fee is $200, blood work and X-rays cost me over $1,000." And like, that's just wild. How am I supposed to pay for this? Like, it's so expensive here. And I get it. It's people's disposable income, and people are slowly but surely getting used to spending more money on their pets. But also, like, say we're at the ER, like, we're available 24/7. Like, we are there to provide a service for pet parents who are worried to come in at any time. Like, it's not going to be free. It's not going to be cheap either. Like, you're going to pay for the value that you're getting. But there's still a lot of perception of, like, oh, well, this used to be the cost of vet med, and now this is the cost of vet med. And yes, it is becoming more, but it's because we need to catch up to having the prices be what the value is, and we provide a huge value. People's pets are like their family, and we're able to help them and save them and keep them healthy. And so there is going to be a price associated with that. Just hearing one-off comments like that, it can be hurtful. I get it. I understand it. But like, it can be hurtful because it's like, do you not value what I'm doing?
Yeah, the sacrificing of holidays, overnights, like the stress that puts on your body, and like the time that you miss with things that you love and appreciate is important, and it is valuable, and it's unpredictable too. Like, we can speak from an ER perspective. You have to staff as if you don't know if there's going to be 0 patients that show up that day or 30 patients that show up that day. So you have to staff somewhere in between. And that also can be stressful in those moments because you don't know, is it going to be a 0 patient day or a 3 patient day, or is it going to be a 30 patient day? And you can try your best to predict, but ultimately you have to pay the people to be there, whether people show up or don't show up. And as far as general practice, you need to see a certain number of rooms in a certain amount of time in order to be profitable and productive, and to pay the wages of our nursing team and our vet tech teams that are at each of these locations too.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just like one kind of tip that I've learned along the way is recently, going to different doctor's appointments, human doctor appointments. I can see how the doctors there can just openly prescribe, like, okay, get this test and then that test and then that test. And they do all of that because it's what's in my best interest. And then like I get a bill for that and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, like it's a lot. Or insurance covers it, sometimes too, or they're covering a portion of it. And sometimes, at least I did this early on in my career, I would like empathize a little bit too much with people coming in with their pets and say like, "Oh, let me try to like, your dog has vomiting and diarrhea. Like maybe we can just do blood work and hold on x-rays or vice versa." And then I've been, like learned my lesson from that many times that, oh, I should have done the other one because we would have found something. And so if you have a dog with vomiting and diarrhea coming in and you think that you need that information from x-rays and blood work, but like maybe that's pushing someone's limit as to what they can afford, like it's your responsibility to recommend that. That is the best medicine. That's what you need to do to help that pet the most, because you can't like predict the future or read minds or like be an x-ray machine into a pet to see what's going on. You have no idea what you're going to catch on those screening tests. And so yes, it's unfortunate if somebody has to take out, a care credit loan or something for it, but like that's for them to deal with and see if they can personally do that. That's not my decision. So to kind of bring it back to the point of abundance versus scarcity mindset, that was kind of an evolution that I had to learn in my practice of being able to do truly what is right by the pet, and then just trust that the people on the other side who have the pet, like they will be able to work out and do what they can do. And that's not on me. And so I think that's one way that it's helped me kind of flip back into abundance.
I had to go through that same transition as a veterinarian, going from having that lack mindset, like, oh, I need to change my treatment plan or change what I offer based on their finances. And then, yeah, the transition into abundance is my job as a veterinarian is to give that gold standard or, plan A, whatever version of that you'd recommend, and be able to give it in a way that's affirmative language. As the veterinarian, I actually recommend that we do these things and stand firm in that, because that's abundance from me as a doctor, and then letting them have their own abundance when it comes to their finances. So I love that you bring that up, because it was definitely something I had to learn as a young vet too.
Absolutely.
And with that being said, we have an amazing group of members within our community, and they've been going through our summer evolution. With the summer evolution, they're defining their authentic values, or the things that really inspire them, the core to who they were when they were a child, and then being able to bring those back in as an adult. And now we'd love to take a moment to apply that to our money topic, because it's super important. Money and values can be completely aligned. And let me give you an example. One of my core values or authentic values is adventure. And so recently I decided that I was going to do a solo birthday trip to Bora Bora, which is my dream destination. And there was a moment that I was like, oh, maybe I should save money or not go on this adventure, or maybe I should wait until I find my soulmate, or wait till I have my honeymoon. Guess what? That was lack mindset, saying that I'm not worthy of going by myself. It was lack mindset and not believing that I could spend that money on myself to celebrate my own birthday. And so really going through that process and evaluating all the things that my brain was saying, no, you can't do that. Or like, my heart was saying, I really want to do this. And it's been saying that for years. And my brain's always been like, no, it's not the time. You have to wait till it's going to be special. But, at the end of the day, if adventure is a core value and I've been dreaming of doing it for so long, I'm limiting myself. It's an upper limit for me because I didn't believe I could go and execute on my own. And so when shifting that mindset from lack to abundance, actually able to freely spend the money, go on that vacation. One of my other core values is luxury. So I got a massage and treated myself to some beautiful like black pearls when I was there. Being able to spend money in a way that reiterates your values actually creates so much joy. I was able to have so much rest time on that vacation, so much time to reflect, like work on evolve vet stuff, as well as just really reconnect with who I am, what I want, and working on our summer evolution while also being in like my dream location was so special because you're able to evaluate how am I living my life and is it in line with my values? And maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but at the end of the day, spending money on something that my heart was craving and that was a part of my values led to so much more. And we'll get more into that in our authenticity podcast. But just those small moments are so impactful when you can spend on the things that you really love. Spend lavishly on the things that you deeply desire and that are going to fulfill your soul. And then don't spend as much on the things that you don't need, right? So, how can you actually spend lavishly on the magical stuff, the stuff that lights you up and makes you so excited? And then maybe if you don't really care about going out to eat, then don't spend money on that. Like save on that.
Exactly. Yes. So that's a popular philosophy from Ramit Shetty, and he's a finance guru. He has incredible advice, and I'd recommend his books to anyone who is interested in learning more about finance. And so he does say, spend lavishly on what you love and save ruthlessly on what's not important to you. I think Bethany's example is great for your adventure value. And so what we did before this was an exercise where we looked at our bank accounts over the last few months to say, okay, what are we spending money on? Because we did a journaling exercise. Like, does the way that we're spending align with our values? And I had a little bit of an epiphany. So I know my values, right? And I've talked about them before. It's travel, it's family and friends, it's self-care and inspiring work. And what I didn't realize is like how big that self-care and wellness is. And so when I went through my bank account and looked at what I was spending on, a lot of it fell into the health and wellness category. And that's not just like, massages or like buying a nice face lotion. Like it's also mental, spiritual, emotional health as well, and like growth. And so we're going to get super vulnerable and share exactly what we spend in case this can help anybody else. One of my big expenses is I have a coach, and that coach helps me be a better version of myself in my career, in my life, all of the things. And I spend $2,000 a month on my coach. So,
yeah. And I spend $3,200 a month on my coach. So we know that the investment of having personalized coaching is so important. And we know that we want to provide that to other people because we know how much it affects us. But it's also something so valuable to us that we're willing to invest a lot of money in it because we know it changes our lives. It keeps us aligned. It keeps us focused on what we love and what we need. And so, yeah, I mean, Anna, how much money lifelong do you think you've spent on like coaching therapy or any other like type of
okay, well, if we're going to go into this tangent, I did this math the other day when I was thinking about it because trust me, the first time I started spending significant money on a coach, this was several years ago. I started with a life coach, and I believe she was about $700 a month. And that was a stretch for me. And then the money follows because the coach is helping you grow. And so hopefully your income, the money that you have, is also growing with that, as it should. And then I got a coach that was $1,500 a month. And then now I have one that's $2,000 a month. And so when I added up how much that is, $2,000 a month, that's $24,000 a year. And when I think back to college, I graduated from Texas A&M undergrad in 2014?
Yeah.
And my annual tuition, I think, was like $8,000.
Right.
Yeah. So I spent more on a coach than I did on my college tuition.
And how valuable?
So let's just let that sink in. Let's let that sink in. But it's been really valuable. It's obviously pushed us to do things like start this business and start this podcast and a number of other things that are more subtle, maybe like showing up better for my husband, Ashley, or whatever it may be. I've spent a lot of money on coaching. When I also bring it back to the bank account and the health and wellness that I spent on, I just started new therapy. So I moved back to Texas. I was like, I'm going to find an in-person therapist. And I did. There's this like great super modern place. It looks like almost like Brooklyn vibes, but it's in Houston. And I started with them, and they are $200 a session. And insurance doesn't cover that. Unfortunately, I wish, hopefully one day, but they don't cover that. And so I'm spending on that because I believe that it's worth it. And there's certain patterns that show up in my life that I'd like to heal, and like not show up that way anymore. And so I'm constantly looking for that up level. And with that comes greater money abundance, time abundance, just joy, happiness, freedom, being able to show up better for myself and for others. So I spent money on that. So then when I'm looking through what I spent money on, it's massages. I've talked about that before. I get maybe like 2 a month. And so Bethany and I just did that yesterday. And I don't know, that was probably like $200. And then I also spend on ClassPass. I love to work out in different places, and it just feels really inspiring to me to be able to do Reformer Pilates one day, or Barry's Boot Camp another day, or Rumble Boxing. And I spend like $150 on ClassPass a month. And then I would also consider health foods in there. So I just moved back to a condo in Houston, and it's right across from a Whole Foods. And so I go in there to like restock the condo, and like $400 later, like I've got all my little goodies from Whole Foods, but that's something that's really important to me. So as you can see, this was just in the past few weeks of what I've spent money on, and all of that was in the health and wellness category. And so that's very important to me. But what I'll say is there are several things that I did not spend money on. So I don't want to just say, oh, I'm spending money on all these great things. So Ashley and I,
so rich.
money. So Ashley and I moved back to Houston, and we've been on the hunt for a house for, I don't know, like a year and a half. And there's just nothing that we feel super called to. And so we decided to move back into the condo that we own that my brother's been renting for the past few years. And we moved back in. It's very small. I won't even say how small it is, but it's very small. And our mortgage is like $300 a month. It's very cheap, but it's in a great place, great part of town. And then so with HOA and all the other fees, like it's like $700. That's what we're paying.
Right.
But we're living in a very, very tiny place. Also, we've paid off our cars, so we don't have car payments. And that's huge. Like obviously, you know, Ashley's 41 and I'm 33 going on 34, and like there's several people around us who have houses, and every once in a while I'll get this itch that I'm like, oh, it'd be like nice to have a big house. But then, you know, we go house hunting and look at them, and we're just like, I don't know what we'd do with this space. We're not used to that much space. And then we'd have to fill it with furniture. And like, that's just not something that's exciting for me personally. There are other people that that's very exciting for, and you should invest in that, but it's not for us. And so the fact that we don't have any sort of significant mortgage or car payments, that is a ton of money that's freed up for us to spend much more freely on things that we love. So yeah, that's my example.
That's a perfect example of spending lavishly on the things that you love and are in line with your values, and then also saving on the things that don't excite you. Yeah. I mean, if you're like us and traveling all the time, it's not necessarily important to have a big space, or, you know, of course, the cozy space that you have, like make it your own, make it unique to you, but it doesn't have to be like where you spend all your money, because it's not where you spend all your time.
Yeah, no. Yeah. And so my philosophy going into moving back into the condo, like we got it refreshed, painted, all the things, new furniture. And we're like, we are going to make this our little hotel room. This is like a hotel. It's like, we love hotels. And so we're going to make it this like bougie hotel. And that's what we're doing.
It's going to be perfect. Can't wait.
So we interviewed some experts for this podcast, and we also read a couple of books. Dr. Meredith Jones, she is an Evolved Vets member and a good friend. And let me read her bio because it's quite impressive. So Dr. Meredith Jones is a veterinarian, certified student loan professional, and owner of All Vet Financial, a financial planning firm focused exclusively on veterinarians and their families. She practiced as an emergency veterinarian for over 12 years. While paying off her own student loans, she became a money nerd and started taking financial courses. Meredith is the founder of the Debt Free Vets Facebook group. There's like 20,000 members. It's wild. She is also the host of the Veterinary Financial Podcast. Her mission is to help veterinarians take control of their finances and build a life they love. So, Meredith Jones gave us some advice, and we want to share that with you. She has bird's eye view so that we can ask her about patterns that she's seen in vet med. And so we want to share those patterns with you so that you guys are a little bit more aware about how veterinarians show up. And then at the end, we'll talk about some advice that we have as well. So the first pattern was about perfectionism.
Yes.
Shocker.
Yeah, shocker. The 20,000 veterinarians inside Meredith's Facebook group are perfectionists. And just this concept of trying to wait for the perfect time, like waiting until the conditions are perfect to start saving your 401k or to start paying down those student loans or to buy that car that you've been dreaming of, like whatever the situation is, that perfectionism holds people back and creates a lot of anxiety. And we find that in many of our members too, and trying to get people to work through that so that way they can live the abundant life with that great mindset. And so that was one dynamic she saw in her members.
Yeah. And so the takeaway from that, the lesson is if you're thinking about starting a 401k, if you're thinking about how to start investing your HSA, if you need to open a high yield saving account, don't get stuck in trying to find the perfect one. They're oftentimes good enough, but just do it. Just take the action and do it. If you don't know how to do it, hire a professional like Meredith who can help you make a plan.
Absolutely. The second pattern that Meredith pointed out to us that she's seeing in her veterinary community is this concept of comparing yourself to others. And we can see that in our women's community as well. That's very common in veterinary medicine, looking at what somebody else has. Like maybe somebody's looking at Anna and saying, wow, Anna goes on all these magical trips around the world, but they don't know that her house payment is $700. So that comparison feature can be difficult. I think the key point and takeaway here is financial success looks different for everyone. Maybe your most valuable asset is abundance and time and spending your time with your family, which means you don't really care if you're making 80K a year because your big priority is having 5 days a week at home with your kiddos, right? And right now we don't have kiddos, so we're doing other things like traveling the world and we can spend money and time on that. But the two can't be compared because the truth is when you align on those values and you decide where you're at today and how you want to spend that money, it's going to look different for every person. And so success is for the many and it's defined by the individual. So that's why it's so important to get true with who you are and how you want to spend your money instead of how you should spend your money or how Bethany's spending her money or Anna's spending her money or how Meredith spends her money. It's all different and it's all nuanced based on the individual.
Yeah, I love that. So the third pattern that Meredith has seen is, and this is important for new grads, but also anyone who's switching jobs, is when you're looking at jobs, only looking at the numbers. So say you're evaluating a job offer and the salary is 160K. Well, and then you're looking at another one and maybe the salary is 180K and you get a $40,000 sign-on bonus. Well, you're not just comparing apples to apples, right? You need to take into consideration the benefits because some of them can be substantial, right? So asking questions like, is there health insurance? How much is covered through the health insurance? Is there the opportunity to invest in an HSA? Is there the opportunity to invest in a 401k? And is there a match for the 401k?
What's the culture like? How many nurses are there or vet techs for every veterinarian? What does that concept look like? What percent production are you earning? There's so many questions.
What's excluded from the production? There's a lot of places that exclude things from production. Like if you sell product, that doesn't count towards your production. And that's huge. That stuff adds up. And then the really funny one that Meredith mentioned is the hours worked, right? It seems like that should be a no-brainer that you should ask how many hours a week you'll be working. But you need to take that into consideration. And I remember I did early on. I took my first job at Thrive and they advertised like, you're going to work 3.5 days a week. And then here's the pay. And the pay was lower than some other offers that I had gotten. But I was working 3.5 days a week and I got an hour lunch break all the time. And so if you're looking at your hourly rate, that's higher. Obviously, there's other factors to consider. But she, in one of her podcasts, Meredith mentions a study in the AVMA, and it talked about how veterinarians perceived that they're working 40 hours a week. They thought they'd take a job, work 40 hours a week, but in reality, they were working 45 hours a week. And so it might seem like, oh, it's not a big difference. It's 5 hours. But if you start to add up those 5 hours, you do the math and you end up working an extra 6 weeks a year, six work weeks. So this is like 6 40-hour weeks a year. Okay, like
Wow.
that's very substantial, and absolutely you should be doing that kind of math before you take a job. I don't want to work an extra 6 weeks for no extra pay.
Yeah. Well, Anna and I had listened to Meredith's podcast and we looked at each other. We're like, we're not taking enough of our vacation. We've worked way more than an extra 6 weeks every year. So when it comes to, yeah, like how much time you work, how much value, how much per hour are you earning? All these things are super important to consider when you're making a final decision. And it's not just a number. You know, what is key in your life? What do you value? What's important to you? And how do you show up most abundant for those things?
And there's other things too. It's not only the money. There's other things that are important. Like say you're switching from general practice to emergency, or maybe you just graduated and you need a certain level of mentorship and training. There's value in that training. I went through the new ER doctor program at Veg because I come from GP, and then now I'm full-time ER. And so when you're going through the nerd program, maybe you're making less than you'll make once you're full-time, but the value of that training, it can almost be invaluable because you don't often get the opportunity to be a second doctor on and to learn and to have this hands-on training, this didactic training. And so you do need to consider what level of training you're getting, because if you invest in yourself in that training now, it's going to pay dividends later on.
Completely agree. I took the advanced ER certificate program and it was an incredible program. It was a large amount of time. I think I spent like anywhere from 4 to 6 hours a week because I really wanted to learn the material with no extra pay. But ultimately, it makes you a more confident doctor. So the time was like a very easy trade-off for the value that it provided, so I could become a better doctor, show up better for my team, be a better leader for them as well.
You were probably making more production afterwards too,
Right.
when you practice.
Yes.
Just because you are able to maybe manage certain critical cases that you weren't able to manage before.
Right.
You know, you've got like the tree of life fluid pumps going, and
Exactly.
like that might not have been, it might have been something that you needed to refer to another hospital before, but now you're able to manage that.
Completely agree.
So to wrap it all up, after we talked to Meredith, one piece of advice that she would give to veterinarians is that success looks different for everybody. And that's what Bethany was talking about earlier. Success is different for everyone. So it's really important that if you're listening to this, you know what success looks like for you. Because just like hustle culture is like a thing in America, like success as a veterinarian, it might not be financial. It might be like you get to work at this certain zoo, or you have these letters behind your name, or you get to spend all of your days teaching new veterinarians, whatever it is for you. But don't compare yourself to other people. You need to know what your values are so that you can grade yourself against those values.
When you're grading yourself against the values too, you're also going to be able to understand more if you're in abundance. And so there's a quote that Anna and I love that talks about really being able to show appreciation for the actual money and the things that you have. Because if you're living in alignment with your values and you're showing appreciation, those things will actually appreciate and get bigger and grow, because you're able to ask the universe, what else is next? I wonder if I could have more. And then it will come. You know, if you really believe it, it will come. But you have to be living in alignment with the values and not trying to keep up with the Joneses, or, you know, do something just because somebody else is doing it. You have to do it because it's in your heart and it's leading you that way.
What you appreciate appreciates. So look at those small things in your life that you love. Maybe it's like we have Zeba sleeping on the floor here. We appreciate her. Maybe you found a quarter on the ground earlier and you can just appreciate, you know, I'm so grateful for that quarter, and more will come to you. More will flow. Trust the universe. It's a dance with the universe.
A dance.
Dance. So my husband, Ashley, he's also a financial planner, and we got some advice from him. It, his big differentiator in how he works with veterinarians is that he is a financial life planner. So he actually went through a certification and a course to learn how to relate your money to your values. And so it's everything that we've been talking about, right? But there's like an actual course that financial planners can take to help with financial life planning. And so when he has clients, he goes through exercises with them during a vision meeting, and he asks really specific questions like, if you had all the money in the world, how would you be spending your time? And then people have their answers. And then he says, okay, well, now you have 6 weeks left to live, and you're going to be healthy. You're not going to be suffering during that time, but like you do find out that you have 6 weeks left to live. How are you going to be spending your time and your money then? And imagine you still have all the money in the world, but like, how are you spending your time? And then the last question he asks is, okay, you have 24 hours left to live. You won't feel any pain. You won't be suffering. You have all the money. What are you going to be doing? And so he asks those questions, whether he's working with someone who's single or a couple, and goes through their answers together. And it helps him really get to know people so that he can help them as a financial planner, not just say like, put your money here and here and here, but actually, how do you make your money create the life you want? Because money is just energy at the end of the day. It's just a flow of energy. And so how can your money help you achieve that life that you want? And I'll say that some of his stories, he has a lot of veterinarians tend to be very conservative, and so he gets them on a plan so that they're, finance their student loans are like in a corner, like that's on cruise control. But then you talk about the fun stuff, and a lot of veterinarians are very conservative and don't actually spend that much, and so they'll be great savers, but maybe they're not spending, and they're especially not spending on themselves. They're very selfless, and they're focused on their work or other things. And so he has his homework to multiple clients has been like, I know you want to go on that trip to Disney World, like go take that trip. He helps people balance that. And then the other thing is, his big advice is, it's not the Starbucks every day that's gonna ruin your budget, right? Contrary to popular belief, it's mostly your house payment and your car payment. If you're over leveraged on any of those, you're gonna be house poor, and everything else is gonna feel really, really tight. And so that's when he sees people get into pickles. And so if you are buying a house, it's not just what can I buy? It's, what is appropriate in your means to buy so that you can spend on other things and you don't back yourself into a corner where you're trapped in a certain job. And so, very important that you take the time to create a plan if that's something that you need. If you're feeling lost, just make sure that you're asking for help. If you don't know where to start, ask someone for help, right? We created this podcast so that it'd be a starting place. We recommended Ramit Sethi's book. We recommended Meredith and her Facebook group, her business, and her podcast. My husband and his business. These are all resources for you. And obviously, reach out to us if you have any questions.
Yes. And your fourth resource is obviously joining the Evolve Vets and joining our coaching program, because we obviously invest a lot in coaching and want to give that back to people as well.
Absolutely.
So with that, we've been reading this fun book called Money's Not the Problem, You Are, which has been very humbling and a big highlight in changing our mindset from lack to abundance when it comes to money. And there's been a really cool concept that has come up in the book where if you just constantly are asking the universe what else good can happen, then more good things are going to come, and it's going to flow, and it's going to be so special. And I think another key takeaway from that book is like, you can do anything for 10 seconds. So if you get frustrated, you can feel frustrated for 10 seconds. But then change your mind, choose to change your mind, and then be happy for the next 10 seconds. Like anything that happens, be annoyed for 10 seconds and then let it go. So those are some good takeaways. And that flow, the reason that that's important and it relates to money is because if you have that positive attitude, that energy, that what are the possibilities mindset, that's actually going to be the thing that brings in and calls in more money, because you're in abundance mindset. An abundance mindset is an energy that you can share and exchange with people. So give the big tip. Treat yourself to the trip to Bora Bora. design your unique hotel, special small condo, like whatever it is, do it with joy and do it with abundance and do it in alignment with your values.
I love that. So the 10 seconds, I heard that in another book too, Tosh Oakley, and she wrote a book called Excessively Obsessed. She's the founder of Monday Swimwear, and she calls it the 10-second funeral. She's like, when shit hits the fan in the business, when I'm upset about something, whatever it is, like if we make a big business mistake, the 10-second funeral and then move on. And I love it. It's like, otherwise, what a waste of energy. So that was great advice. And then the other thing that I found fascinating from the book was before 1940, passion had this connotation of suffering. It meant that there's some sort of suffering that you have to go through to feel a passion. And so he says, when you're choosing what to do, don't go after your passion. Do what you love and do what you're good at, because you don't need to suffer to be successful or to love what you do. And so just really focus on what you love and what you're good at and how you can help people.
I love that. And that was our money chat. And together, let's stop revolving and start evolving.
Until next time, let's stop revolving and start evolving.